It's interesting because, as you said, it's almost as if the markets are calling the bluff on the trade wars and the tariffs. So, yesterday we saw China open up, we saw Europe open up, and the same thing happen in the U.S. And coming in this morning, we see much of the same happening. Asia's in the green, Europe's in the green, and the U.S. looks like it's probably going to pop open a little bit higher as well. So, I think that the news of the tariffs was a little more muted than investors expected. Perhaps the U.S. administration is giving U.S. traders and corporations time to find new supply chains. Perhaps it's giving some time for negotiations with China. So in the short term, at least, it appears as though the market isn't really reacting to some of this information. And if it is reacting, it's reacting somewhat on the positive side. So we've actually seen a lot of performance in our China, our Europe, our emerging market funds yesterday off of this talk.
All right, Sylvia, on the positive and negative side of things, from a sector or industry perspective, where do you see the battle lines really kind of playing out on the bullish and bearish side? Which sectors out there?
Sure. So I think, my view would be more or less on the short term versus the long term side. So in the short term, again, we feel as though the market isn't reacting negatively to this news. So in the short term, we have seen, China sort of perform. Both the FXI related ETFs and the onshore ETFs, the A-share ETF index products are in the green right now. And I think if China employs any kind of stimulus, that might continue. We've also seen healthcare rise. We've seen industrials doing well. We've heard news about increased defensive spending. So we've seen the defensive sectors and some of those Boeing, Lockheed type of names popping up in the short term. But in the long term, what sort of remains to be seen is how does all of this impact the U.S. economy? Does the consumer suffer in the end by paying higher prices? Do these geopolitical tensions set us back with Europe and Asia? And what does it do to the dollar? So, in the short term, the dollar is softening a little bit. If that continues, although we saw a sort of negative sentiment last night with an increase in stockpiles, but in the long term, crude might pop. Healthcare and some of the defensive sectors might be in the bullish territory.